dismissed the moment I had been eagerly anticipating, his words lingering in the air, left me utterly speechless. What had begun as sheer disbelief now evolved into a powerful blend of anger and sorrow, a potent cocktail of frustration and sadness coursing through me. A lump formed in my throat, and I felt the sting of unshed tears. My achievement, the recognition for my hard work and dedication, was being swept aside as inconsequential. But that moment I realized that it wasn't just about missing the ceremony. It was about the lack of understanding, the absence of support, and the crushing feeling that my accomplishments were not valued by those I held closest. I gazed at my dad, the very person I had counted on for support, my eyes reflecting a turbulent mix of disbelief and betrayal. The deep disappointment that had taken hold of my heart was vividly mirrored in my expression. Meanwhile, my mother did not hold back, voicing her own disappointment and berating them both for choosing an impulsive ice cream craving over a monumental achievement in my life. Their heated argument raged on, adding to the chaos of the moment. I continued to feel a sense of betrayal and hurt, feeling a heavy weight on my chest and a lump in my throat. I mustered a weak smile and told my dad, "It's okay, Dad. Don't worry about it." The words tasted bitter on my tongue, forced out to mask the deep emotions swirling within me. I didn't want to escalate the argument or add more strain to the already tense atmosphere. As I made my way back to my room, the facade I had carefully crafted for my dad disintegrated. With the door firmly shut behind me, I finally let go. Tears that I had struggled to hold back in front of my parents now flowed freely down my face. The sheer weight of disappointment, the sting of betrayal, and the deep sense of being let down all crashed over me like a tidal wave, leaving me utterly overwhelmed. My mom, seeing me upset, came into my room to comfort me. She sat beside me, putting her arm around my shoulder. She didn't say much, just let me cry and vent my feelings. Her presence was reassuring, and I felt a bit better knowing she was there for me. After a while, she spoke gently. "I know it hurts, sweetheart. Your dad messed up, and I'm sorry you had to go through this. Sometimes people make mistakes, but it doesn't take away from your achievement. You worked hard for that award, and nothing can change that." Her words were like a warm hug for my soul, and I began to feel a little lighter. She stayed with me until I calmed down, assuring me that despite the disappointment, I was still valued and loved. There have been countless times when my dad's blatant favoritism towards Michael over me has been painfully evident. My mother has confronted him about this issue on numerous occasions. Each time, my dad appears to genuinely listen and makes an effort to be more present in my life, but it's always short-lived, and he ultimately reverts to being super dad to Michael. It's a recurring pattern that I've observed throughout my entire life. Despite these moments of partiality, I have always tried hard to win my dad's approval. I have a genuine interest in his work, and in particular developed a deep love for cars, partly because it seemed like something he valued, even though it often felt like a one-sided effort. I kept hoping that my efforts would eventually make a difference and earn me the recognition and approval I crave from my dad. Last year, my dad filed for divorce with my mother, citing irreconcilable differences, marking the beginning of a challenging chapter in our family's life. I knew for a few years that the arguments between my mother and my dad had become worse and worse, but I'd never imagined that they would be divorcing. It was a difficult time for us as a family. Over the past few months, my dad has been involved with several younger women. About 5 months ago, he summoned me and Michael for what he claimed was an important dinner. As we sat down at the table, the air in the room grew heavy with tension, and a knot formed in my stomach as I braced myself for the unexpected news my dad was about to deliver. With a solemn expression, he finally broke the silence and began to speak. "I have something important to share with you both. Olivia and I got married." He looked at us as if expecting us to be overjoyed, or at least accepting of his decision. Michael and I exchanged stunned glances. Olivia, his latest girlfriend, was only 30 years old, just a few years younger than me. The shock on our faces must have been evident. But my dad continued, seemingly oblivious to our surprise. He went on to explain how he had found love again, and how Olivia brought joy and excitement into his life. I couldn't believe that my dad had decided to get married without even inviting us to his wedding or discussing it with us. My dad didn't just stop with that announcement, and went on to say how proud he was of the business he had created and grown over the years. He said how he's been thinking lately about the succession plan of his business. I waited with bated breath for him to share his plans. My dad turned to look at me and told me that he had thought long and hard about this, and decided that since I wasn't married yet and had no children of my own, I should forget about inheriting the family business from him. I stared at him, utterly perplexed, as he continued to reveal his decision to pass the entire business to Michael. Waves of shock and disbelief crashed over me, and I struggled to come to terms with the immense sense of betrayal that had suddenly consumed me. It felt like a devastating blow to the core, causing the trust I had in my father to disintegrate before my eyes. A storm of anger and betrayal surged within me as my dad dropped this bombshell. My entire world, built over a decade of hard work and dedication, was crumbling before my eyes. I stared at him, my jaw tight, unable to comprehend the magnitude of his decision. "Why?" I finally managed to utter the words, seething with a mix of anger and hurt. "I dedicated my life to this business. I built it with you. How can you just hand it over to Michael?" Dad, seemingly unfazed by the storm he had unleashed, explained his reasoning. "Michael has a family, a wife, and kids. He needs the financial stability, and I believe he can take the business to new heights." His words hung in the air, and I felt the weight of his favoritism crashing down on me once again. I struggled to keep my composure, my hands clenched into fists. This isn't fair. I've given everything to this business. I've worked alongside you and dedicated my time and energy. And now you're just going to cast me aside because Michael has a family. What about my future? My dreams? His response was callous. You can continue to remain in your position and work under Michael, but the business goes to your brother. That's my final decision. Despite the surge of anger coursing through me, I managed to restrain my retort. I turned towards Michael, seeking even a glimmer of support or empathy. To my dismay, he remained silent, avoiding eye contact. The disappointment I experienced now extended beyond my father. It enveloped my brother, who had opted not to stand by my side. In that pivotal moment, I felt the crushing weight of a lifetime of favoritism pressing down on me. It wasn't just about the business. It was a culmination of years of feeling second best. The sacrifice I made, the dedication I showed, all dismissed with a casual wave, resigned. I muttered a defeated, "Fine, Dad, if that's what you want." I turned away, the bitter taste of betrayal lingering in the air. I decided to walk out of his house without fighting with him any further. I couldn't shake the feeling of abandonment, the realization that my dad continued to favor his golden child, despite how hard I had worked over him. Later, in the solitude of my home, the weight of the injustice pressed down on me. The business I considered my legacy, my life's work was slipping through my fingers. Anguish welled up, and the room blurred as tears blurred my vision. I had never experienced such profound isolation and rejection. Feeling utterly abandoned, I made the decision to reach out to my mom, desperately hoping she would comprehend the depth of my turmoil. As I recounted the entire ordeal, from my dad's blatant favoritism towards Michael, to him taking away the family business from me, and the overwhelming sense of being adrift, my mother listened with a mix of surprise and dismay. "I never imagined he would go this far." My mother finally broke her silence, her voice tinged with sadness. "To treat Michael so much better and give him the business completely, instead of dividing the business equally between the both of you, is completely unfair." Her words matched exactly how I felt, as I didn't mind sharing the business with Michael, but my dad had unfairly given it to him completely. Despite how hard I had worked over the years, as we kept talking, my mom's voice went from surprised to determined. She told me firmly to try not to see this as the end, but as a chance for something new. "You've done amazing things and you don't need his approval. Why don't you start your own business? You know, a lot of clients would rather work with you than Michael," she said. Through her words, a flicker of determination ignited within me. If my dad thought he could strip away everything I had worked for, he was mistaken. The pain of betrayal fueled a silent vow.